Hi people, this is the first video in a series sponsored by Gorilla Glue, and today we're going to build a really easy to make water and sand play table for the garden, and Ellie here is going to test it, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah! I knew that I wanted to have a water table that could be closed to prevent the neighbourhood cats, well, doing things in it, let's just say that, and it needed to be cheap and simple, so I found these plastic tubs at my local supermarket. And of course some of my favourite glue. Don't forget to use appropriate safety protection such as safety goggles, dust masks and gloves. There are some little plastic supports on my boxes that will stop the box sitting flush with the table, so I remove these with a little saw. I measured the tubs and took note of the measurements so I could build the table to match them. I then made a little sketch in Autodesk Fusion. You can just as easily do this on paper, but I prefer to use a 3D model. I'm making the legs with 2 bits of 2x4 sandwiched together. This gives some support to the frame from underneath, plus as it's staggered, it allows a strong joint between 2 wood faces. As you probably know, end grain joints do not make good strong joints, so to make this thing as strong as possible, we're going to try to glue wood face to face. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, imagine the wood fibres are these straws. The ends of the straws soak up the glue and take it away from where it's needed to create the join. On the sides, the glue remains in position and makes a really strong bond. I'm going to make this with really simple butt joints, no fancy joinery and no tools that the average DIYer won't have access to. I'm also going to try and make this thing as easy as possible with no nails, screws, fixings of any kind, just glue. Oh, and some wood. You'll need that too. From my sketch, I know how long I want all the bits to be, so I'm using my miter saw to cut it all to the correct sizes. You can, of course, use a handsaw to do the same job, but it will take longer. So, like a sensible person, I stick to using my miter saw. I clean up all the cuts with a sheet of sandpaper, but if you have the power tools like this orbital sander, this will be a lot quicker. Now initial gluing up. I'm going to make the legs and frame in the workshop, and then glue the whole lot together outside where there's more space. A good glue joint doesn't need lots of glue. The trick is to cover as much surface area as possible with a small amount. Gorilla Glue has a nice flat nozzle which works really well for small pieces, but larger areas need a little bit more. I often use a silicone basting brush, and it can be very satisfying even to use your fingers. For this, however, I'm going to use an old store card. Once glue has been applied, there needs to be some clamping force to keep the wood tightly fitted together. There are loads of ways to clamp wood. Screws work well and act as additional fixing. Gravity and weights can also be used. I've even used strong tape before. And yes, Gorilla Glue do sell strong tape. Where possible, however, good old clamps are the way to go. And there's an old saying in woodworking that's very true. You can never have enough clamps. With all the legs made, I assembled part of the frame, making sure all the legs were at a perfect 90-degree angle. I made sure I gave all the glue joints a good 24 hours to properly dry. Unfortunately, I had to wait for some good weather to build the table outside, and that's not something us British have in abundance. Before I glued up everything, I put it all together to make sure it all fitted well. Gluing all the bits together outside is probably the hardest part, as I don't have any clamps big enough. Make sure you clean up any mess, as it will be much harder to do later when dry. I used some framing clamps I had to try and keep the joints together. If you have child labour available, you should definitely use it. Once fully dry, around 24 hours of good weather, I did my usual strength test. If it can take my weight, it can take whatever a toddler can throw at it. I did a little bit of sanding, as I had a lot of glue and the joints were a little bit messy despite the mop-up, And then some nice colourful garden paint. This stuff is great. You only need one coat, although I did use 2 to help add some additional weather resistance. To make exploring the sandpit that little bit more fun, I 3D printed a bunch of toys and dinosaur bones. You can do this with any toys, of course. This is a human leg bone. But it's a dinosaur leg if she asks, okay? I filled the sandpit with children's play sand and the water part with, well, water, all ready for Ellie to play. I also double checked to make sure the lids fitted on nicely, and they do. So let's see what my little girl thinks of the water and sand play table.
Can I open it?
Can you open it? No, this is just a table. No, of course you can. So in here, right, it's quite well done up. We have sand.
I got the bucket.
Yep.
And the spoon.
That's right. And in here, water.
I think of a spoon.
What do you think?
Yes.
Good.
I like to play with sand.
Good. Well, we can sit down here and play with it. Do you think there might be some special stuff hidden in the sand for you as well?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I find them.
You're going to find it. Might be some dinosaur bones.
There is.
There is! Wow!
They're right down there.
You found a dinosaur bone!
Where is the next one?
The cat also approves. The next morning, I did a little modification to the water table. Since my little girl loves dinosaurs, I 3D printed a T-Rex shower nozzle, a little hole, some glue, and I was able to give it a hose lock connector to attach a garden hose to and stick it onto a painted 2x4. And since there wasn't time before Ellie woke up, I cheated a little bit on the no glue rule and used some screws. Don't tell anyone. Take a look at your
You can be dinosaur too.
What do you think? That's right. Is it amazing?
Yeah.
Marvellous.
It's fascinating.
Is it actually? Yeah. As you can see, she absolutely loves the water table, especially with this latest edition. Edition of the T-Rex head. Oh, we've had loads of Ellie. We've had loads of fun playing with this, and hopefully this will keep her out of trouble. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I had fun making it. Please, just for the safety of my workshop, thankfully. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for Gorilla Glue for helping me to make it. Now please click the like, subscribe and ring the notification bell if you want to see more videos like this. And as always, if you've got any comments or questions, perhaps you're considering building something like this yourself, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, everybody. You're lingering around waiting for something cool to happen, because this isn't a Marvel action movie. There's stuff. Tell you what, I'll put a couple of videos just there. There you go. Clickety click. Check them out. They're really good. If I don't say so myself. Come on. I need to dry myself off and get changed. I'm gonna get naked in a minute and no one wants to see that. Or maybe you do. Okay.